Welcome to the show. Ain't Gonna Hurt Nobody podcast, episode 16.
Sweet 16.
How sweet it is. So what better way to celebrate our sweet 16th than having a show about putting ideas into action? And for this show, we're going to let our guest introduce himself.
So my name is Peter Gaona of Reform School.
We're so glad you're here.
So happy to have you here today. So Peter, how about you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Reform School?
Okay, so I'm born and raised on the South Side.
South Side?
Yes. South Shore specifically. But went to Beasley, graduated from Whitney Young, was a dancer for about 20 years. So was dancing with different companies all over the country, moved back to Chicago, and started teaching and working in arts administration. I hadn't finished my degree while I was a dancer. Like I went to New York, trained at the Ailey School, and then just kind of started working. But I never finished my degree. After high school, I went to Chicago State for 2 years. I think that I went back to school after my dance career was over with. I was working in education and was kind of told on the low, yo, we can't pay you as much because you don't have your degree. So I knew I was going to go back. It was just kind of figuring out when. And so I went back to Columbia College. I was like, I have 2 years to finish because I finished my gen eds at Chicago State, which is a blessing in disguise because, I have my gen eds paid for super cheap. Columbia is really expensive. And so I was able to focus on my major and get it done full time in 2 years, which was live and performing arts management, which I think they've changed now. But Reform School started while I was there because I always made stuff for myself. And people would always be like, yo, make me one. But I always wanted to be the only one that had something. And I knew I couldn't afford the expensive stuff that, other people wouldn't have because we were priced out. So I would always just buy a shirt from Express and add some stuff to it or deconstruct it or, just do different stuff to it so that I would be kind of unique. And people would always ask me to make them one, but I'd be like, no, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to fall apart. I don't know how to sew really. So, but when I went back to school, I took an entrepreneurship class, and that's kind of how I started Reform School. So originally it started out with just bow ties. I make bow ties still, but they're all made out of repurposed fabric. So I wanted a denim bow tie, and I couldn't find one or couldn't afford the ones that I found online. And so I just had jeans that I wasn't going to wear anymore. We all have jeans that just sit there because they're the wrong cut. They don't, they got holes in the crotch or whatever. So they're just sitting there. It was do I donate them? Do I throw them away? What do I do? And so I cut them up and just started making bow ties out of them. I had a bow tie that I took apart to see how it was made. And I think I wore it to a New Year's Eve event. And again, people were like, I want one of those, make me one. But not until I had taken the class was oh, I could be making money on the side doing this while I'm in school.
With Reform School, what are all the things that you create?
So now, originally for the first few years, it was just bow ties. And so I started doing lapel pins, for blazers and stuff like that. Once I graduated from Columbia, the school that I was working for hired me back. And so it kind of became just my side hustle. And I would use my vacation days and take days off, my sick days, all of that to do pop-ups. And I started an online store, but people didn't really know who I was. And it's just you start something, and I wasn't promoting it. So you can have an online e-commerce store, but if nobody knows who you are, people aren't going to really order from you. So I started on Etsy, which was good because Etsy was at the time was kind of the eBay of handmade goods. And it was pretty strict on everything had to be handmade. You couldn't have anything produced in China or the rules have gotten a little bit more lenient now. But I was getting orders from different parts of the country or even the UK or that I didn't know anybody there, but I was getting orders for bow ties. And I think that doing the pop-ups really helped increase my sales for those because Target stuff looks good online, and then you get it, and it's like, oh, this shit is all made out of plastic.
Yeah, you could like feel it and touch it. Yeah.
So I mean, people can see the quality, hear your story about like why you started it, and they kind of grow attached to your brand and want to support you. So I was doing it as my side hustle, and then I actually got let go from the school, and it allowed me like the space to create more stuff because I had been making more, just stuff for myself. Like, so I had been doing like some artwork on apparel just for myself. Like, so I one of the first things I did was I recreated the I Am a Man poster from the civil rights movement from Memphis, and just in response to like black men being shot all over the country. And so I wanted something that I could wear. And I thought a lot of people knew what it meant and the history and significance behind it. But when I would wear it, around Chicago, people would be like, oh, that's so funny. Or I know you're a man, or get like just little comments that like let me know that people didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, like still ignorant.
Right. And so it was just it was a way to talk about it and to tell people about the history behind the poster and how Dr. King was impactful in that sanitation worker strike. We're going through a strike now with this teachers union.
Yes.
But, just like how important it is for us to like get together and protest,
Awesome. So Peter, I think you took us through a lot there, right? You took us through almost the last 30 years of your life. Right. So got a couple things we want to unpack because, I was introduced to you through kind of your reform school efforts. I think, obviously we met at Everybody's Busy, Melissa's coffee shop. And then I think like 2 days later, I was at Boxville and I caught, you were popping up there. And I saw your Anita Baker pen and your Whitney Young pen. I was like, oh shit, these are clean. Yeah. And so I definitely caught both of those right away. But can you talk a little bit just about your journey to get there from really like leaving school to become a dancer? So to do that for 20 plus years it sounds like a very tough thing, physically demanding thing, but it seems like a very important life choice to make, coming out of school to become a dancer for 20 years. So can you talk a little bit about your process, how you kind of embraced the arts, and then how you got to do it professionally, and kind of the family process and how that went with your family deciding to go into the arts?
It's a pretty long,
that's what we're here for. Yeah, we got time.
So I was super shy as a kid, and like Beasley had a dance program, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. And I did it for like a week and was like too shy to do it. I was like, I can't do this. I'm gonna go back to art class. I wanted to be up there with everybody, but I didn't want people to look at me, which was, you want to be a part of the group, but you don't want to be like the soloist or, it was just a young person thing, like not being comfortable in your own body and all of those things. And I feel like dance really helped me kind of come into my own. So I didn't dance until I got to Whitney Young. Like Whitney Young had a great dance program, and I don't think I did it freshman year. My friend who was in my division, her name is Nataka, who I bump into all the time now because she stays in Hyde Park. And she's the one who like, Peter, you should come and take my dance class. You get a full credit for dance instead of like a half a credit for gym. So I was like, cool. So I went to like, she was in jazz too. She was like, you can audition, like they need guys. So I was like, okay. Went, Miss Brooks, who was the dance teacher at the time, was like, okay, you can't be in jazz 2. You could be in jazz 1. Because I was like, never danced before, couldn't do anything opposition, like when you walk. Anyway, I started with jazz 2, ended up on Guys and Dolls. And I never thought that it was something that I would do as a career, especially at that time. It was just like something that I kind of was naturally good at. I was flexible. I kind of picked up stuff easily. I had never taken dance before. Joseph Holmes was one of the dance companies in Chicago at the time, which was like a black dance company here. And they came to the school and had this program called Chance to Dance, where you could like get a scholarship and go take classes there. So I did that. But again, it wasn't like, this is what I want to do. This is my passion. Like, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh, wow. I would have never imagined that in a million years.
Yeah, I can see you in a nice suit, though. I
thought I was
going
to be a lawyer. Kind of my sexuality was another hindrance. So when I was in high school, my senior year, my parents found out I was gay. I used to be a huge kleptomaniac. Like me, I think a lot of kids in Chicago stole, but like...
That is not accurate.
I know not what you talk.
But yo, we were like, it was like a game for us. Like everywhere we went, we had to steal something. like a sandwich, a bottle opener, like anything, any place we went, it was like a game for us. Not that like our parents were balling and we had money, but we didn't need to steal, but we just did it. It was like kind of easy for, yeah. I mean, also we wanted the clothes that we couldn't afford. So that was the thing too. So anyway, cut to senior year, 3 months before like graduation, me and my best friend were at Filene's basement. Had pretty much, yes,
the one downtown on 6th Street.
Yes. Had pretty much hit them up every day that week because it was just so easy. Like I had clothes for like a month and could not repeat the same outfit. Like Dolce & Gabbana, Ralph Lauren, like everything was there.
This was 95.
Yeah. So I think I can't even remember what day it was. It was like a Thursday, and go in, and it was just so easy. We were like, I'm just going to take 2 Timberland t-shirts, one for me, one for her. So we got the shirts. I have them on me. Going up the stairs to like State Street, I look up and I could always spot the loss prevention, and they were like at the top, like, we got you. So yeah, spent the night in it used to be a police station on like Roosevelt.
Yes, I remember that. Spent
the night there. So I didn't call my parents, I called my best friend because her dad was a cop, and I was like, yo, tell him to come get me out. But she couldn't. For some, I think she had been caught like maybe 2 weeks before, so she was like, if I tell him, he'll know I was looking at me, and I would be in trouble. So anyway, spent the night there. It was late. She called my parents and told them some lie, which they didn't believe. But I didn't get out till the next day. I think they were trying to like teach me a lesson. I was probably like 16, and they should have called my parents, but they were like, oh, your fingerprints didn't go through something. So I didn't get out. I missed school the next day. I get home, I had a pager back then, so my pager's blowing up.
911.
Yes, my sister's paging me like, get your ass home. So I get home, but my parents had gone through my stuff and found some like letters and all this stuff, and so that's how they found out I was gay. And it kind of changed the trajectory of everything that I thought. My plan was to go away to school, and my mom is Jehovah's Witness, so she was like, none of that is happening.
Oh, wow.
They were going to transfer me they threatened to transfer me from Whitney Young, even though I was about to graduate, and told me I needed to go to my neighborhood school.
Oh, damn.
Which was like either CVS or Bowen.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Wow.
So it just kind of changed a lot. Like I couldn't go to school. She literally took me to Chicago State and enrolled me that summer.
Wow. So you did Chicago State for 2 years at your parents' urging at once they found out you were gay. So tell us about the move to become a dancer, and then how you did that for so long, and then your move to get to being an entrepreneur.
I think it was just something that I was kind of naturally good at. So I was, and it was easier for guys to get work and not be as trained as women, because there were. I probably wasn't as good as I thought I was at the time, but I was getting work because people needed guys. And so
did you tell your parents that, hey, I'm going to leave Chicago State and become a professional dancer?
Well, I mean, I was still under 18. So that was the thing. Like my mom was like, as long as you're under 18 and you're living under this roof, you got to follow my rules.
Oh, wow.
And so up until I was 18, I stayed. And then once I turned 18,
so you graduated high school early in order to.
I think just when my birthday fell.
Gotcha.
I was still.
Got you. So you became a dancer for 20 years. You want to spend a few minutes and talk about life as a dancer?
I loved it. I mean, it was like one of the things that I was very passionate about. I still am passionate about, like the arts and using your body and as your instrument to like tell a story. And I've been lucky to work with like some of the really good, I feel like really great companies in Chicago, like Deeply Rooted Dance Theater. They're still around. I love them. The work is amazing. The Joel Hall dancers, I've worked with them. Some companies that aren't around anymore, Luna Negra Dance Theater, the Lyric Opera here.
Oh, wow.
Todos Dance Chicago. There's been a few others that I worked with, but outside of Chicago, Cleo Parker Robinson Dance Ensemble in Denver, Dallas Black Dance Theater in Texas. That was the last company I danced for before I moved back to Chicago.
So talk about the move back to Chicago after being a professional dancer for 20 years and what inspired that move, and what did you do when you came back?
So I had started my second contract with them, and it just wasn't going right. So I kind of left in like the early part of my second contract, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just like, I didn't have any like family support in Texas. I didn't have a car there, which is a place you really need a car.
Yeah.
So it was like difficult socially to make friends and to get around. You don't always want to be that person, but like, hey, can you pick me up? You know,
No Uber.
right. There was no Uber at the
Yeah.
time. I mean, there was like public transportation, so I could get to the mall. I could go to the movies. I could, you know, go eat and stuff. Go to Walmart to get groceries and hop on
So
the
all
train.
the stuff you could do in high school.
Right. But it's pretty difficult to get around without a car.
Got you. So I know you told us, you know, in preparation for this show that you wanted to start a men's dancewear line.
When I was in New York, there was a woman who made like stretch dance wear for all the people at the Ailey school. And so I was like, I should do that. You know, because when you look at like men's dance wear in the catalogs and everything, there's only like out of 50 pages, there may be like a quarter page for men. And it's always like 3 colors, very limiting options. And so if you're like a small guy, you can fit the women's stuff, but it's not necessarily cut for you as a man. But we still wear it because it's like colorful, and when you're at an audition you want to stand out. Like you want to not wear black, or unless they specify like wear this, but you want to stand out, you know. And dancers have great bodies, so you want something that shows off your body. And so I wanted to do a men's dancewear line. So a friend of mine worked in costumes for film and TV, hooked me up with his seamstress who lived in Highland Park. And so like for a birthday gift, he got me classes with her. So I would drive to Highland Park and go, you know, take classes with her at her studio. And so that's where I kind of learned how to work with stretch fabric and create patterns and do all of that stuff. But realizing that working with like stretch material is very difficult. Like you pull it too hard and it starts rippling up and bunching up, so it doesn't give you like a flat seamless look. Like you don't want, you know, lines like swimsuit. Like you don't want it to be bunchy or I was like, okay, dancers don't really make that much money to be spending on one, you know, one piece that they could wear, you know, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of like put that on the back burner, but it did teach me like some of the basic skills that I would then use for reform school, just kind of like sewing and cutting and creating patterns and all that kind of stuff.
So for those that don't know, reform school like borrows very heavily from contemporary black culture and kind of takes iconic moments and figures and images and kind of immortalizes them into various mediums, such as, you know, enamel pins, stickers, T-shirts, hoodies, and
Stationery,
and bow ties. So, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, the entrepreneur hustles become real, right? Like you have a lot of people who their job occupation is entrepreneur, but they don't live off their quote unquote entrepreneurship. So I think really what we wanted to do is find a way to take somebody who is a successful entrepreneur who took that step and took that dive to start their own business based off their own ideas, more or less their own capital, and kind of went after that. So how do you kind of take your inspiration for something and then actually turn it into an actual business or something that you can actually live off of? Can you talk about that step? Because I think a lot of people have ideas for T-shirts and a lot of people have ideas to make their own brands, but how do you actually make it something that this is what I'm going to live off of, this is what I'm going to eat off of, if this don't go, I don't go?
Well, I think I have, like I said, I started with the bow ties, which was doing pretty well when I got let go from the high school. I think I said that.
You did,
okay, yeah. So I got let go from the high school, and things happened all in my favor. You know, everything happens how it's supposed to happen. My plan was, you know, as the bow tie business was growing, I needed to invest more time in it to make it grow to where I wanted it to grow, to be able to, you know, not have a full-time job and just do this. And when I was let go, it gave me that time to just explore and create. I was able to get unemployment, you know, and then a large sum of money came my way because of the letting go process. So it gave me capital that I could invest back into my company. And so, like I said, I was just doing bow ties at first, but then I started doing like more sweatshirts and like appliques and, you know, artwork, like hand-done artwork on T-shirts and well, mostly jackets, like vintage jackets. I would buy vintage jackets and do artwork on the back. I would order blank sweatshirts and do, you know, the artwork on them, all me. It was all like, I'm still just like a one-man show. I stamp all my bags. I I don't print the t-shirts and stuff now. So that came later because I did want to have a line of stuff that I just designed and would send out to other people to make, like the greeting cards and the t-shirts and the pins, where I could like have more time to focus on the handmade stuff. I thought I would have more time to do that, but the design part of it takes just as much time, like going back and forth with your manufacturer, also giving up control of something that you make, you know, so you can kind of quality control everything. I know when I mess up and I have to start over because I don't want a product to go out that like is garbage.
So talk a little bit about the vendor process, right? Because I think a lot of people, you know, again, have the idea to make t-shirts or stickers, but you talk about, you know, working with a vendor to deliver like an enamel pin. What does that mean? Like, you have to trust that it's going to come back?
Yeah. So like, I mean, most pins are not made in the US. So you're working with China or someplace overseas, and the language barriers like is huge. Time difference, you know, sometimes you want something for holiday and we don't think about like holidays in other countries. So factories close for like, I mean, when they say closed, they're closed for like a month. For like Chinese holidays, or you know, so you have to keep those things in mind. I think like the first year I started doing pins, I wanted these orders to come in so I would have inventory for holiday, and of course I got them late. I didn't know, you know, so it's just like kind of a learning curve when you start adding new products.
And I think the interesting thing too is like when you order a product, you're spending money to get that to go, and then if that product doesn't sell, you can't order something else because you don't have cash or liquid capital to actually put in another PO to, you know, if you looking for this pin money to make it into tote money, which can eventually become hoodie money when the season comes. If one of those don't move, you're A, stuck with that inventory and you have to look at it, and then B, you can't buy something else unless you're willing to take another capital risk and not get that back.
Right. So, I mean, I've been kind of fortunate to have like, you know, if one thing doesn't sell, I still have money coming in from bow ties or, you know, and I mean, I still do like some little jobs here and there. Like I still teach every once in a while, which I haven't done in a while, but I used to teach at Studio One in Beverly. Shout out to Studio One. But I was teaching there. I was also directing Ailey Camp Chicago for a while, which is through the Alvin Ailey Foundation. And it's a great summer camp for kids. It's pretty much free. So I like still kind of incorporating all of those things. But again, as the business grew and I've been adding more like pop-up shops and doing different festivals, I couldn't commit to doing Ailey Camp anymore. I couldn't commit to teaching at Studio One, you know, not even like one day a week, because I didn't know what my pop-up schedule was going to be like when I would be traveling and finding a sub and all of those things. And like as a director, like for Ailey Camp, you really can't
not be
you
there.
can't not, you're the boss. Like everything is on you. So if something goes wrong, whether you're there or not, it's still going to fall on you. And so that just wasn't one of the things that I would do as a director for something like that. So like I think I stopped doing Ailey Camp 2 summers ago because I got into Essence Festival, and it happened the very same time. Like the first week of camp was when Essence Festival was. So I was like, I need to do Essence Festival.
That's a good market. I have a few questions, but I would say my first one would just be like, how did you prevent burnout? Like, I see that like people might have a great idea and then they actually put it into action, but then there's so many like obstacles they got to overcome, and it might start going good and then it goes in waves. I guess like what would be your advice to prevent just that burnout from it?
I don't know. I get ideas all the time. Like sometimes like I'm horrible. I'm sure I have like ideas that kind of just flew away because I didn't write them down, but like honestly to me it doesn't feel like work because I really enjoy doing it.
Oh, okay.
And I'm a night person. I'm up late at night just sewing or like drawing or like kind of sketching or just thinking of like little things that I could do. Like what's next? What's the next pin gonna be? What's the next shirt design gonna be? What would I want? Like I kind of always design like for myself. I'm not thinking, I mean sometimes I think about like what's gonna sell, but I'm usually thinking like what would I wear? And so I think sometimes like maybe like this summer I've been busy doing pop-ups, so I haven't been doing as much new applique work because I haven't really been inspired to do it. But when it hits me like all at once, and I'll just be up like all night just sewing and cutting and kind of putting stuff together.
So it seems like you're kind of like a person that like follows after your own like heart. Just a little background, like my father was a Jehovah's Witness as well for a while, and then my grandmother was a Jehovah's Witness, and that's like a very like strict religion. It's like very strict, so it's kind of like you're an anomaly because it's almost like you just were like 100% you, no matter what, and it just seems like you're like you just followed after what you were good at. So I'm just intrigued, like, what made you even think to want to be a lawyer? And then
LA law.
Oh.
Like the TV shows, like seriously, like all the TV. I used to like love like all the court TV shows. I didn't really grow up Jehovah's Witness. Like my mom converted when I was in like maybe sixth, seventh grade. But my dad never converted. My parents are still together, but my dad never converted. So it's a weird household.
They make it work. They clearly making it work.
I mean, they've been together, I'm 42, so they've been like almost 45 years they've been together. My mom's been, like I said, Jehovah's Witness since I was in 6th grade, maybe. But me and my brother and sister, we only went to Kingdom Hall for like 2 or 3 years. And then my dad was like, he saw that we didn't like it, like so much that he was like, yo, one of them is going to hurt themselves if you continue to make them go. And so that was a huge point of contention with them, where she was just like, how do you give children the choice to choose their spiritual education? And he was like, one of them is going to kill themselves if you continue to make them go. Like they hate it. So like, it was just not.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Nothing against it. If it's like, I think there's a religion for everybody. I don't necessarily believe there's one religion for everyone because we're all so different. But whatever makes you a better person, I say go with it.
And if you liked LA Law, it might be more that you could have been an actor. If you think about it, because it's like they're really just actors pretending to be lawyers. Right. And lawyers aren't that fun. But
I did like, knowing you can't do this. Just like knowing the law. I think I like that. I like
cool.
History. Yeah, I don't know if it would have really worked out.
How did the name Reformed School come about?
So it started with the bow tie. So Reformed, I was thinking of like repurposing, recycling, reusing. So all of the leather that I use is repurposed, leather pants, leather skirts, stuff that I find at the thrift stores, or it's like textile waste from other people who make stuff. So like upholsterers. When I was at Columbia, I was just cutting up like leather pants that I had. That I was like, yo, I'm never going to wear leather pants.
I'm going to say, how many pairs of leather pants that you had that cut up to make a business?
I did live in New York. Come on now.
Hey.
But no, I was just like, I'm never going to wear these. So I cut them up. And then Shop Columbia. So when I was at Columbia College, has a shop where students can sell their work there. It's a really great process. So you submit your artwork or your fashion or whatever, and they go through a panel that kind of juries your items and gives you feedback, like either yes or no, but how to make them better. So like at the time, I was making all the neck bands, and one of their critiques was like, these need to be uniform. They all need to look the same. But they loved the bow ties. And then the person who did all the upholstery for Columbia College reached out to me like via Columbia College email or whatever, and was like, I have boxes and boxes of scraps of leather that you can just have, because I only need like, maybe like 3 inches by 2 inches to put in the center of a bow tie. But he had like huge hides, huge sheets, all different kinds of like colors. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, I didn't have to buy any leather. I just used what I had, what was given to me.
So Reformed came from your wanting to
educate people about eco fashion and what we can do with what we already have, and kind of like
it's like repurposing.
Repurposing, reusing, but teaching people like you don't have to throw your stuff away. Like we watched documentaries when I was in school about like all the textile waste that, donate your clothes, don't throw them in the garbage, like donate it. Somebody else can do something with it, reuse it. I mean, even though like we think we're helping homeless people when we donate clothes, like that's a whole racket in itself.
Yeah.
But it's still better than ending up in a landfill, like taking 100 years to decompose, when we could turn it into something else or let somebody else wear it.
That's awesome.
Since you did dance, I'm just curious, like, what is your take on dance like now?
So I don't have as much time to go see dance, but I go when I can. I love that it's like growing and evolving, and that you're seeing more people of color on stage and in companies that were, mostly white. Like Homer Bryant at Chicago Multicultural Dance Center is doing, it's called Hip Play, where they incorporate point and hip hop. And it's gotten a lot of, it's kind of controversial in some, respect, but I love that it's pushing the envelope and exposing young Black girls to ballet. Because like people think like, oh, that's so ghetto, that's this, that, but it's exposing them. Like you can't just hop on a pair of point shoes.
Yeah.
You have to take all the classes that it takes to get to going on point, which sometimes takes years. And so I just love that it's pushing the envelope. It's evolving the art form into something that's going to be next, like it's taking it to its next place.
I have a question, kind of a diversion question. So can you talk about the difference between being gay like in the early mid 90s versus like going into 2020, just like how that just, I guess, kind of like just the general like societal acceptance, then versus now, and what do you think that means towards, encouraging more kids to go into the arts or following their own dreams or passions?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there tend to be a lot more kids who are gay or queer in the arts. Like the terminology is also changed.
1,000%.
Very much so. Like I still identify as gay, but now kids, working at the high school, kids are like, I'm queer, I'm bi-curious. There's like all of these different labels now. I think it's cool, like, that you can have a boyfriend and a girlfriend, or, like you're questioning. That doesn't mean like you're just one thing. But back in the 90s, like, I don't feel like I was like out. People probably thought, maybe in my head, I don't know. But I'm sure people was like, oh, he's the dancing boy, he's gay. But you don't know. I don't know. But there were people who were way more flamboyant and out there. And I kind of like, back then, I think I was afraid of them, but also jealous that they could just be themselves. Like it's also one of the things that helped me become a better dancer once I accepted my sexuality, because I never wanted people to look at me and be like, oh, he's gay. And so on stage, it kind of like limited how much I would move like my hips or something, because I didn't want somebody to be like, he's gay.
Yeah, but it's kind of like you wanted them to see more of you than that. I mean, that's not saying, you know what I'm saying, that you just wanted them to see all of you in a way.
Well, I thought, to me, in my head, I thought like dancing like a man meant not doing stuff a certain way, but it was limiting for me. And I think until I became comfortable with who I am just as a man and as a gay man, it like helped free me. Like on stage and off stage, like I just became more comfortable with myself. And I think that just comes with age, like not caring what other people think about you.
It's so interesting that you would even say that you were like uncomfortable in some ways, because I think people always look at other people and they always say like, oh, they got it all together, they got it all figured out. And I could see people looking at you like, wow, he was a dancer, he has his own brand, he has this, like, he's so confident in himself. So I think it's cool to discover like even everybody got insecurities in their own way.
Yeah. And I think like I said, there were a lot of, in the 90s, like kind of hit it. And so I think we knew that, even among gay men, we knew that we were gay, but effeminate gay men were kind of like looked down upon. And I think that even today, there's still a lot of like effemophobia in the queer community. Like, you see that with like trans women and, kind of the totem pole of where people stand. I mean, who has the power? Gay white men, and then it kind of trickles down from there. But I think it's just like something like a lot of us battle with. Like I was envious of how free effeminate men could be because they didn't care. But at the same time, I also didn't want that extra attention for myself. Now I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were saying to compare it to today.
Correct.
I think like I don't know if you should watch the show Pose.
I have not seen an episode of that.
Yeah.
So I was like, I did a couple of events. I like do some like community engagement stuff, but I did an event around Pose because I was like, this is great. Like I know kids are still getting kicked out of their homes today because parents are finding out that they're gay. And so it's still a real thing. Like it's not, it's changed and people are more accepting, but it's still not like everybody is cool with it.
Yeah.
Especially South Side, West Side, it's still like we come from a very masculine, macho culture, and sometimes that can be toxic.
Do you ever fear that can help or hurt your business?
No, all money isn't good money. Like, so when I first started doing the bow ties, like I had my family and friends like send me pictures. I would take pictures of them, and somebody was like, they were all on my cards, and somebody was like, you should hire some white models because people might think these are only for like black and brown people. And I was like, why would you think it's a bow tie? Like, why would you think that? So I was like, if they think that, I don't need their money. If, you know, it's a piece of clothing. It's an article of clothing. Like, that makes no sense. So I don't think you don't have to take money from everybody. You don't have to sell to everybody. Like, I've gotten requests for like to do certain pins, and I'm like, no, I won't make that.
Gotcha.
Well, speaking of the pins, like I have the Anita Baker pin, which I thoroughly enjoy. The images that you pick, to me, like very like spot on. I'm just like curious, how do you decide, or do you just see it like you just personally love the image? Or
yeah, it's just like music I grew up with, like artists that I'm like fans of. There have been some pins that have been requested. Like I get people now saying, you should do a Whitney Houston pin, you should do this pin. But I have to think about certain things when I'm making pins. And like if they'll sell one, but then like I have people like one of the pins that got commissioned was like the Schoenberg pin. So Arturo Schoenberg is the founder of the Schoenberg Center for Research in Black Culture. I think that's the name of it, the official name. But it's the Schoenberg Center in Harlem on 135th, and they carry my stuff. So it's been like super random. Like I don't have anybody like reaching out to gift shops or things like that trying to like get my merchandise in there. They found me on Etsy and reached out and wanted to carry my stuff, and then they were like, oh, can you do a pin of our founder? And I had never heard of Arturo Schoenberg before. So I was like, I just heard Schoenberg and I was like, oh, it's going to be a white dude. And then I, looked it up and I was like, oh, he's Black and he's Puerto Rican. So it kind of connected on a bunch of different levels for me.
I know on the phone we talked about different ways people can show support that's not always financially. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, so I always, my friends are always like, oh, your business is doing so good and it looks great on Instagram. And I'm like, yes, it's the gram. Like nobody's posting past due bills or, I should take pictures of like all of these sweatshirts sitting in my apartment that haven't sold, Yeah. I mean, everybody, you don't see that part, but that's a real part. Like, so recently, thanks to Melissa from Everybody's Busy, I got a storage space because I outgrew my apartment for the business. Like there was just stuff everywhere. I hated, coming back home after going to get something to eat because I'm like, damn, I got all these sweatshirts. So it's just been a lot easier to like get some of the stuff that I don't need to have in my apartment out and grab it from the storage before I'm about to ship it out. Or there's an elevator, so when I have a pop-up, I could just go straight to the storage, get in the elevator, load it to my car instead of carrying all these bins from my apartment down 2 flights of steps to my car. It's just made it a lot easier.
It's like home is home.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I still work from home, but it's not all of this stuff everywhere, like all the time.
So you mentioned earlier that you got accepted in the Essence Fest. So can you spend a little bit of time for our listeners talking about kind of the grind? Once you have a successful concept, once you have a viable concept and there's actually a market demand, can you talk a little bit about now all the places, let's say just this summer alone, let's say from May until now, like all of the different pop-ups that you've had to do, or like all the things that you've had to do to actually sell beyond your own website? So
Essence is one. I do Afropunk in Brooklyn and Atlanta. Silver Room Block Party in Chicago is like a great event here.
So can you talk a little bit, I'm going to pause you as you go through the rest of the list. Can you talk a little bit about Silver Room this year and the challenges with the weather and what that does to you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so this year I was almost defeated by the weather because it was like, felt like 100 degrees out there.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't do it because I forgot to apply. And I'm cool with like everybody at the Silver Room. So I was like, oh, I could just hit them up late. And they were like, yo, we have no spots left. And I was like, oh well, like it wasn't meant to be. But then they called me back and was like, we created some more spots. And so I was able to do it. Go there, set up, leave to go get some, whatever little things, come back, unzip my tent, and where I was situated, right behind the Hyde Park Bank, where the alley was, it was like a wind tunnel. So my stuff just kept blowing over like 4 or 5 times. Like it was awful. So
Wow.
my hangers, everything was just like breaking. Clothes were falling on the street, so they were getting dirty. So I packed it all up and I was about to head out. I didn't even put out the pins because I was like, if they fall on the concrete, they're gonna get scratched and I can't sell them.
Gotcha. So did you make any money off of that, or did you at least break even, or how did that go?
My display for my pins broke. So I just kind of, I'm pretty quick on my feet. So I came up with, just zip tied it to these shelves that I had, and I was able to keep the pins up on there. So I didn't have anything else, because like my bow tie displays kept falling over, like everything kept falling and like breaking. So I didn't want to like damage anything. So I just had pins. And we set up, like, I think we were supposed to be set up at like 12.
Okay.
And with everything that happened, I didn't get set up and open up till probably like 3. And I only had pins, but I did a couple grand just selling pins. I mean, people were like, where's the t-shirts? Where's this? Where's that? And I was like, yeah.
So you could have did several more, you think?
Yeah. I mean, but so it was still a successful event. And I was about to leave, because I was about to be like, I'm leaving. I'm going home. I'm going to go take a shower and come back and kick it. But it worked out.
So you talked about, so you did Essence Fest, Afropunk, Silver Room, what other?
Silver Room. So I usually do every month the Hyde Park Handmade Market, which is at Promontory. It's like I think it's like the 3rd Sunday of every month.
Okay.
And that's one I do. Like, it's a community market, but it's one that I do every month because I don't have a brick and mortar, and people know that they can always pretty much find me there.
Can you talk about the significance of not having a brick and mortar versus having to do pop-ups and that grind?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the overhead of having a brick and mortar right now is saving me a lot of money. Like, I have another friend, Kiwa, you know Kiwa, she's the owner of Kiddo, and she just got a brick and mortar. But they're, when you're in a mall or retail space, like, they dictate your hours. They say, like, the mall is open or the retail corridor is open 7 days a week. So you have to hire staff to be there, whether it's busy or not. You're paying someone or you're spending your time there to man it.
Yeah.
And for me, that would be, I mean, it may work. I could sew and do stuff out of there, but just the rent and having to hire employees and all of that right now it's not in the cards right now.
Gotcha.
So I would just be curious, like, how do you deal with like naysayers? Because I could see it kind of being people always like, oh, I would have thought of that, or like just the haters. Like, how do you I mean, I'm assuming you encounter that, and then also I'm assuming you encounter people like counting your money, like, oh wow, look at how many people are coming to his booth. He's, like rolling in the dough. Like, how do you deal with that type of stuff?
I mean, most of the money goes back into the business. It's still like growing. And I don't think people think about like how much festivals cost, and like you got to buy tent, and most of the time you got to pay people to help you, like you can only count on your friends for free so many times.
Yeah.
So they're like, yo, I need more than lunch.
Nice.
But I think for the longest time too, you were saying naysayers, for the longest time too, I talked myself out of doing anything as a business, because I was like, if I could make this, anybody could make this. So I would talk myself out of doing something a lot. But I think like we pay for convenience. There's so many things that we could do ourselves. I mean, everybody can make a hamburger at home, but we still go to restaurants, or we go out to eat when we could always cook at home. We go to Starbucks, we could buy coffee at home, but we pay for convenience. We pay for, somebody else's expertise, for somebody else's idea.
It's true.
So I think one of the cool things, what really inspired this show, this is episode 16 of this podcast. We've been doing it almost 2 years now, right?
Yeah, I think in February it'll be 2.
Yeah, so, year and a half. And I think a lot of people think it's cool that, we have 2 kids and jobs and we balance everything to do this podcast when we can. And I think a lot of it was just like, hey, we've been talking about doing it. Let's just get up and do it. Happened that we met, the team here at ADIV, and it all came together. Can you talk a little bit, just like, what's your advice for people who have an idea, who's afraid to kind of get off the bench and get into the game? What would you tell them?
I say do it. I mean, just you have to research. Like, you have to do your research. A lot of times people ask questions like, who prints your shirts? Who makes your pins? Who does that? As a designer or somebody who's doing that, if you're a stranger, Like that's like asking McDonald's who makes your or what's in the secret sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Like normally people don't tell you that. Like if you're a friend, I share that stuff. But you just coming up to me or DMing me like, and I don't know you, I've spent money trying to figure this stuff out. You know, Google is your friend. Like everybody has Google. We all have the same access to the information. Like you can't just expect people to just give it to you. But I do help people, you know what I mean? Like I try to share the information as much as I can without giving away everything that, you know.
Yeah.
Because you still have to have like this, like, yo, they might try to copy my stuff.
Yeah,
but,
they might.
Right. So, I mean, if I know you and like we kind of built a relationship, like I'm all for helping and promoting other people. But I think, like I said, just researching, like Googling, reading, you know, as much as you can on what you're trying to do, learning the different techniques, like t-shirts. Like there's so many different options for t-shirts. Like you can screen print, you can direct to garment, you can heat press, you can sublimation print. There's so many different options for you to get your artwork on a t-shirt.
We did an episode, I think episode number 2, we had Mr. Corey Gilkey from Freestyle and from Leaders. He came on and we talked about failing in order to get to what your calling is. Can you talk a little bit about that as we start to wrap the show?
Every failure is just another lesson. Like you learn from it, you learn what didn't work and figure out how to make it better. I mean, there have been markets that I've been to where I'm like, I don't sell one thing. And you think it's a failure, but people grabbed your cards and they got to see your stuff. And then boom, the next day you get all these online orders. So sometimes you know, in your head, you've defeated yourself, but you still have to try to remain positive. I don't know, we pay all of these, sometimes hundreds or thousands for these booths, and you don't necessarily make your money like that day. But sometimes it's just about promotion. Sometimes it's just networking. So I don't look at it as like a failure. I look at it as like a chance for somebody to meet me and know my brand and potentially like it and get it later.
Well, that's awesome. What we're going to do is we're going to get a couple of dope photos and we're going to share them on our Instagram page, just of some of the things that Peter puts out there, because it's really amazing. So much so we had to have him on the show. So, Peter, how about you tell us where we can find you at, and both online and in store, and what you got coming up, you know, from now until the end of the year?
Yeah, so the Silver Room carries my items, like a limited selection. I'll carry everything. Shop Columbia carries some of my stuff here in Chicago. The Schoenberg Center for Black Research in Harlem. Maud and Company in Baltimore. The Sable Collective, I think they're in Philly.
Okay.
And where you can find me next, I'll be doing Vins and Vibes at Arts and Public Life on 55th and Prairie. It's December 14th and 15th.
Okay.
I'm also doing a pop-up at Stony Island Arts Bake on December 13th, which is a group of friends of mine who are all creatives and have products. So it's going to be a cool, like, we'll have a DJ, like a little vibe. I'll be in New York after Thanksgiving. So Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, I'll be at the Schoenberg in Harlem. And then the following weekend, I'll be at the Brooklyn Navy Yards. They're doing a pop-up shop there. But you can find us on Instagram at Reformed School, REFORMED School. And the website is reformed-school.com.
Awesome. Right now, Peter, you're sitting at 9,996 followers on IG. So hopefully this gets you over that 10,000 mark. Or if you've been over 10,000 and go back and forth, hopefully this gets you over that hump and you stay there.
Yeah, I feel like I finally stopped getting all the requests from the hair companies. The weave coming.
Yeah, we got a lot of those too.
Your hair yourself is quite beautiful.
Thank you.
But I also will say his product has a high quality. It's like a good like weight to it, and it's like a good quality like product.
The pins come. I designed the pins, but then I also designed the card that it comes on. So going back to Reform School, like a way to use a fashion accessory to teach history and culture. And so on the back, I try to put a little. It's a small card. It's like 2.5 inches, but at least a little blurb about like why you should know who this person is, or what inspired this, or what's the historical content or value behind it. So when we wear stuff that we don't always know what it means. So when you wear these, if somebody's like, oh, who is that? You can tell them, just based off the few little.
Yeah, because from my Anita Baker pen, I didn't know she was from Philly.
Yeah.
But because of my pen, I was like, oh, she's from Philly. Okay.
So yeah, I try to, include different little stories if I just kind of research, and I'm like my Sade pen. I'm a huge Sade fan as well. But I found like a little story about why she named the album Love Deluxe. So that's kind of on the back of that pen.
Why did she name it the Love Deluxe?
Because she said, I don't have the quote exactly, but she was like, you can get any kind of love, but you can't, or you can buy any kind of love, but you can't buy Love Deluxe. Like kind of like a.
That's like deep and not deep all at the same time. That's awesome. That's awesome. So guys, if you don't take anything away from this show, make sure that if you have an idea, like just put it into action, whether it works or not, put it into action. Do your research, get out there and grind and put your dues in, but you got to stick to it no matter how long it takes you to do it. And then if that window comes where you can pursue it full time, just do it and step out there on that ledge and take a leap. If you fall, you won't fall far because you don't know what that next thing is going to bring. So, Peter, we very greatly appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
On, taking an idea, taking it to action, and just kind of doing you and being your own authentic self.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we like to end every show with this little segment called Things We Wish We Would Have Known. It's always just kind of a quick tidbit that, what could you tell 13-year-old you? Or what would you want your kids to know if you leave it behind? So we never have these thought out. So with that said,
something I think I wish I would have known is just like you could have an idea and then you might start to put it into action. Like I had tons of ideas. I'm like a creative person, and I would start to put it into action. I would do the research. I would like draw it out in a journal. I would do all this, but then I feel like really the next action is like being able to like put yourself out there to other people. Like you can be like, oh, I got this great idea. You show it to your friends and your friends are like, yeah, good idea. Cause they're like your friends. And then, but I feel like sometimes you can get stuck there and then people will come back to you like, hey, what happened to this idea? What happened to that idea? And then you just like never really like got yourself out there to the people who you don't know. So I think something I wish I would have known is just like it's okay to step out of your comfort zone because you could always like fall back into the people who actually like support you and you'll be okay.
That's good. That's deep. That's deep. Peter, I'll give you a little bit more time. I'll hop in here too. Something I wish I would have known is the power of networking. I think just kind of given my entire 2019, just the power of people from your past, present, and then how they can affect your future. I think, Peter, I pretty much met you 6 months ago. And then just in that time alone, you've like connected me with people that you didn't have to, that's eventually going to get money in my pocket off of that. And that was just off of, me being a nice person,
right.
I feel like, to you, and just kind of being real and authentic.
Dolphin.
And a dolphin should have been a dolphin. Within that, I know just, when you start looking, any young people, when you start looking for jobs or any older people, you're looking for new jobs, it's 80% of all jobs come through a referral or a connect. So as talented and as good as you might be, like having that network and that support to kind of bolster and get you in a place will go a long way in terms of actually getting loot in your pocket. So don't underestimate the importance of networking and what people are going to mean in your life somewhere, in your present or especially down the road.
Yeah, people remember you, even if you think they don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known how to ask for help sooner. I think like I tried to, even now it's kind of hard for me to ask people for help because I try to be like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. Because I think people are willing to help you if you just ask. Like they don't always, like people see my stuff now and think like, oh, he's got a team, but it's usually just me. And so I've learned to ask people, like when I was first starting doing these markets by myself and being overwhelmed with people coming to my booth and asking my sister and asking just friends like, yo, can you come work? And now I know a little bit more, that I'm going to need other people to help me do this.
Gotcha.
So even if it's just working the booth or, hey, I got to go use the bathroom and watch my stuff, just having somebody there, having people help you, with the things that you don't want to do, like accounting and that kind of,
Yeah.
all of those things, like you said, the things you don't want to do, you can ask people to do them for you or pay people to, hopefully pay people to do them for you eventually. But yeah, just reaching out.
Yeah, no one person can buy every pen and shirt and sticker that you make, but yeah, just even helping you load a car can go a long way.
Right,
So.
like Regina and from coffee shop, Leslie from the coffee shop. Like they've been, just around at my booth and like hanging out, and they see it get busy and they'll start ringing people up, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even ask them to do that.
Did Leslie give you your money, man, when you run me out? Okay, just making sure. So.
But yeah, that's just like that example of support. That's not financial. Yeah,
I'm sure the other people would do it, but some people just need that that question posed to them, hey, can you help me?
Absolutely. So, guys, I think we gave you guys a great episode 16. We're very happy that Peter was able to come out, Mr. Reform School himself, and kind of put us on some game on how to turn your idea into reality and how to grind it out and how to really just kind of do your research and keep at it. So,
yeah.
This is episode 16, Ain't Gonna Hurt Nobody podcast.
Yep, we out.